Anthony Yarde seeks to challenge for the unified light heavyweight championship of the world against a man who has a death grip on the titles. But the true question here is Anthony up for the challenge? Let's talk about it. Boxing is always very interesting when you have young men competing at the highest levels of the sport. And it will be no different come this Saturday, January 28th, as Anthony Yarde, British light heavyweight contender, takes on Artur Beterbiev for the unified light heavyweight championship of the world. It'll be broadcast live from Wembley Arena. The questions about this particular fight for Yarde are, is he ready for the type of heat that is going to be required to stand in with Artur Beterbiev in a 12-round scheduled fight? Beterbiev is a champion whom has reigned with terror. He's a guy that has had a success of stoppages and turning away challenges from even more seasoned fighters than Yarde. Frank Warren seems to think that this is the type of fight and challenge that Anthony Yarde can win. He feels that Yarde is going to be able to challenge Beterbiev and pull off an upset. There have always been high hopes on the fighters coming out of the UK when it comes to challenging for the world titles, whether or not they've been prepared for it. And that's simply because in that part of the world, they really respect the sport of boxing and they support their fighters, even to a fault at times. And I can't blame a country for getting behind their sports representatives in a sport that they totally support. Yarde is the type of fighter who has athleticism, strength, he has power, but he doesn't really have the boxing acumen that can separate him from other fighters. So he will always have chances in matches, even if you considered it the proverbial puncher's chance. That's what he brings, and he's always a threat when he brings something like that, because fighters have a tendency to get lackadaisical and allow for openings. So his record of 23-2 with 22 KOs shows that he has the power to get men up out of there. But will he be able to do that against Beterbiev is all another question, because Artur Beterbiev is the type of fighter that just because you punch hard, just because you have knockouts, doesn't mean that he is going to go away. Beterbiev is the type of fighter, he's been dropped before. He's gotten up and stopped guys. He's had terrible cuts and has persevered through that. So a challenge from Yarde, being a hard-hitting fighter, he's going to have to bring more than that. And I do believe he may be capable. There are occasions when fighters can rise to an occasion and show more than what his wares are known to present. But we're talking about a different beast in Artur Beterbiev. This man is a destroyer. And after seeing his destruction over Joe Smith Jr., that fight told me a lot that I didn't know about him. The fight took place in June of 2022, and it ended up being a 2-round fight because Smith rolled the dice to go after Arthur, looking to go in and punish him with aggression and punching power, and to try to fight his way through strength and overbearing. Arthur looked at that situation, assessed exactly what was happening, and took Smith apart. He is the only fighter in the sport of boxing currently who has a 100% KO ratio in as many fights that he's fought, which his record now is 18-0 with 18 straight KOs. And he does it in a variety of ways. He's not the devastating bombing puncher that you have come to see from the likes of Tank Davis or even a Deontay Wilder. The man has an innate strength that hasn't really been seen in this generation. I've seen it in fighters of old. I have often remarked that Beterbiev is the type of fighter that you can take him and put him in the 80s with the likes of Matthew Saad Muhammad, Spinks, even Dwight Muhammad Kawi. Those men were strong, durable fighters, had granite chins, good punching power, could knock people out, could go the distance, could break fighters down, defeating all different types of styles, whether you were southpaw or orthodox. Beterbiev is a throwback to that era. Now, when we look at Yarde, some of his advantages, being an unorthodox power puncher, will place him in great favor as long as he's able to box out of those circumstances. He's not noted for his boxing, but he is known to punch from weird angles, and he has good pop on the punches. But will he remain focused, and can he consistently fight the type of fight with discipline? Definitely having to take care of himself for what's coming in, because once Beterbiev begins to turn up the heat, he's going to feel it in that ring. Another thing about Arthur is he being a great inside fighter. He throws short punches with tremendous strength and power, often surprising his opponents, because you wouldn't think ordinarily that a guy gets that type of strength and power on short shots. But again, with old school boxing technique, that's exactly what happens. Short punches, not wide winging shots, not even long shots that find fighters out of range. He is definitely an intense, calculating fighter with aggression. And he comes in. He doesn't look to get you out of there with a single shot. He looks to put his shots together. He looks to bang the body, break you down piece by piece. And he seems to really enjoy it. If you're fighting back, if you're offering up resistance, he relishes that, and he turns the heat up even more. He is truly like an old school fighter, because a lot of the guys of today aren't of that cloth. And it's not to just put them down or tell someone like they're incapable. But when you don't seek out the competition properly, as you ascend your contending status, you don't learn to defeat styles. And with 2 losses on his record already, Yarde has shown us he can lose. The fight to Lyndon Arthur that he lost in December of 2020, He avenged it in December of 2021, but he still dropped that fight. Even though he is athletic as he is, his athleticism could also be a hindrance because you just take it for granted that you're going to be able to do something physically. But what if the opponent takes that away from you? Remember his 2019 loss to Sergey Kovalev. It was a TKO in the 11th round, a fight he was handily winning, but he ran out of gas. And Kovalev came on to stop him after nearly being stopped earlier in the fight himself. But Artur Beterbiev is no Sergey Kovalev by any means. And I want to know if people think that we're talking about ethnicity, if you're talking about where someone comes from, nation-wise, and things of that nature, none of that will apply to this fight. It's going to come down to what's inside of the men. And we have yet to see Yarde step up and show that. He will have to in this fight, and that doesn't mean he's incapable. But Artur Beterbiev is on a mission. He wants to become the undisputed light heavyweight champion. And with his ring IQ, he can run Yarde into a few tricks because he has that amateur background where he's fought a variety of styles, and he knows exactly what he'll be facing when he faces Yarde. The recent fight against Joe Smith Jr. showed Artur that when guys come and try to blitz him, which has happened in the past when he was dropped, he's prepared for that now. There's really nothing that Yarde can show him that he hasn't seen before. But there are things that Yarde will find out in this fight that he hasn't seen before. Namely, the aggressive ability to cut the ring off, pressure a fighter, make him fight. And when you fight, there will be openings. And when there are openings, he'll be prepared to take advantage of them. What will Yarde do then? Will he be able to stand in and ward off the man that we're now calling General Zod? It's going to be interesting, and it'll probably be action-packed for as long as it lasted, just like Beterbiev's fight against Joe Smith Jr. But it'll be up to Anthony Yarde whether he wants it as bad as he thinks he does. I know Artur does. What do you think? This is Stormy B-Man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC and Liberated Perspective, the third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know how you think this fight is going to go. We'll tune in with heightened anticipation. Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.